Digital SAT, Blue Book Test 1, Module 1. Let's do this. I'm going to read everything out loud just to show you that I have to read everything. There are no shortcuts to doing this. I know it's going to take longer because I'm doing it out loud, but that's how I do the test. So let's do this. Researchers and conservationists stress that biodiversity loss due to invasive species is blank. For example, people can take simple steps such as washing their footwear after travel to avoid introducing potentially invasive organisms into new environments. Preventable is my guess. I'm going to write that down. Preventable. Okay. A, preventable. I literally predicted that. Notice I did not actually look at the answer choices. I just made a prediction based on actually reading it. You might not believe me, but predicting is how I do this test. So I think A looks good. B, undeniable, no. Common, no. Concerning, no. It's got to be A. So I'm moving on. Breath to reset, stay loose, and let's do it. It is by no means blank to recognize the influence of Dutch painter Hieronymus Bosch on Ali Banisadr's paintings. Indeed, Banisadr himself cites Bosch as an inspiration. However, some scholars have suggested that the ancient Mesopotamian poem Epic of Gilgamesh may have had a far greater impact on Banisadr's work. It is by no means unique or original, is my prediction, and I'm going to write that down. Note, I'm making a prediction for everyone, and I'm writing the prediction down. Then I'm going to go to the questions, yes, no, maybe. Substantial, no, that's not what I predicted. Satisfying, no. Unimportant, maybe. Appropriate, maybe. And notice, I actually don't know the answer right now, and I'm not going to force it. And I probably could think a little bit and get it, but I just want to use this moment to preach one of my most important techniques, which is if you're not 100% sure, skip and come back later. I wrote my entire PhD thesis about this. I call it learning, excitedly, returning momentarily. So we'll return in a little bit and see if that helps. All right, number 3. Breath. Astronomers are confident that the star Betelgeuse... I'm going to start by reading the question. So which describes the function of the second sentence in the overall structure of the text? Okay, astronomers are confident that the star Betelgeuse will eventually consume all the helium in its core and explode into a supernova. I'm visualizing this happening. Cool. They are much less confident, however, about when this will happen, since that depends on the internal characteristics of Betelgeuse that are largely unknown. Astrophysicist Serafina El-Badri Nance and colleagues recently investigated whether acoustic waves in the star could be used to determine internal stellar states, but concluded that this method could not sufficiently reveal Betelgeuse's internal characteristics to allow its evolutionary state to be firmly fixed. So my prediction here, I'm always predicting, I'm always writing my predictions on reading questions. It is stating something that the astronomers don't know, which is the timing. So scientists don't know, state that the scientists don't know the timing. Okay. Drop my paper. A, it describes a serious limitation of the method used by Nance and colleagues. I don't think it's about the method. So I'm going to say maybe minus. B, it presents a central finding reported by them. I think it's the lack of a finding, so I don't think it's B. It identifies a problem that they attempted to solve but did not. That looks really good to me. D, it explains how the work of Nance and colleagues was received by others in the field. Definitely not. I'm going to punch in C. Breath, move on. It's important to keep moving on this test. You'll notice I make decisions quickly and I don't get stuck. I don't get in my head. I don't beat myself up. I continue to move, even if when I don't know the answer. Okay, the mimosa tree evolved in East Asia, where the beetle Bruchides tyrannus preys on its seeds. It refers back to the mimosa tree. I'm visualizing a beetle eating mimosa seeds. I thought a mimosa was a drink, but anyway, here we go. In 1785, mimosa trees were introduced to North America, far from any B. tyrannus. But evolutionary links between the predators and their prey can persist across centuries and continents. And I looked at this question, but let me just state out loud, this question is asking about the function of the text. So Evolutionary links between predators and their prey can persist across centuries and continents. Around 2001, B. tyrannus was introduced to in southeastern North America, near where botanist Shumei Chang and colleagues had been monitoring mimosa trees. Within a year, 93% of the trees had been attacked by beetles. So it's a general claim that the next sentence explains. General claim that the next sentence explains. Okay, A, it states the hypothesis that they set out to investigate. No, I don't think they did any investigating. B, it presents a generalization that's exemplified by the discussion of mimosa trees. I think that's probably right. C, it provides context that clarifies why the species mentioned spread to new locations. No, it doesn't mention why it spread to new locations. And D, it offers an alternative explanation. No, it's not an alternative explanation. The answer is B. Breath. Move on. Okay. Number 5, I'm going to start by looking at the question. So based on the texts, how would Focarelli and Panetta most likely respond to Phan's findings? So I know I'm going to have to deal with Phan's findings and figure out how Focarelli and Panetta would respond. Text 1, when companies in the same industry propose merging with one another, they often claim that the merger will benefit consumers by increasing efficiency and therefore lowering prices. Economist Ying Fan investigated this notion in the context of the U.S. newspaper market. She modeled a hypothetical merger of Minneapolis area newspapers and found that subscription prices would rise following a merger. So what are Fan's findings? Fan said that subscription prices to newspapers would rise following a merger. Text 2. Economists Dario Focarelli and Fabio Panetta have argued that research on the effect of mergers on prices has focused excessively on short-term effects, which tend to be adverse for consumers. Using the case of consumer banking in Italy, they show that over the long term, several years in their study, the efficiency gains realized by merged companies do result in economic benefits for consumers. So my prediction, how would they respond? They would say, look at the long term. Look at the long term. Okay. A, they would recommend that Fan compare the near-term effect of a merger on subscription prices in Minneapolis area with the effect of a merger in another newspaper market. Nope, has nothing to do with another newspaper market. B, they would argue that over the long term, the expenses incurred by the merged newspaper will also increase. Nope, that does mention long term, but the end of it is not right. It's not that they will increase. C, they would encourage Fan to investigate whether the projected effect on subscription prices persists over an extended period. Yes, that's exactly what I predicted. D, they would claim that mergers have a different effect on consumer prices in the newspaper. It has nothing to do with other industries. Can't be D. Okay, I'm going to go back to number 2 now. It's been a couple questions. Confidence feels good. I'm getting into a groove. Let's go back and see if 2 feels different. It is by no means blank to recognize the influence of Dutch painter Hieronymus Bosch on Ali Banisadr's paintings. Indeed, Banisadr himself cites Bosch as an inspiration. However, some scholars have suggested that the Epic of Gilgamesh may have had a far greater impact. Okay, so my prediction is by no means, I predicted unique before, is by no means surprising. Okay, cool. So I still think substantial is wrong, satisfying is wrong, is by no means unimportant. It has nothing to do with importance. It is by no means appropriate to recognize the influence of Dutch. Oh, so I think I missed something here. Let me start from scratch here and check these out. It is by no means substantial to recognize the influence that the Dutch painter had on Ali Banisadr's paintings. I don't think so. It is by no means satisfying to recognize the influence. It's by no means unimportant. That might be it. The double negative is throwing me off there. Unimportant. So it is important. I see. The double negative, by no means unimportant, was throwing me off there. So it is important to recognize the influence of Dutch painter Bosch. Yeah, that's the one. Appropriate is wrong. Okay, see, that took me a while. I'm glad I skipped and came back. And I'm glad I took my time reading because that, especially for question 2, that's a pretty hard one. Okay, let's keep it moving. Let's go to number 6. Okay, so I start by reading the question. According to the text, what is true about Eleanor? The following text is from Jane Austen's 1811 novel, Sense and Sensibility. Eleanor lives with her younger sisters and her mother, Mrs. Dashwood. So I'm visualizing kind of cottage from 1811. And there's this woman, Eleanor, a couple younger sisters, and a kind of elegant looking mother, Mrs. Dashwood. Eleanor, this eldest daughter, whose advice was so effectual, possessed a strength of understanding and coolness of judgment which qualified her, though only 19, to be the counselor of her mother, and enabled her frequently to counteract, to the advantage of them all, that eagerness of mind in Mrs. Dashwood which must generally have led to imprudence. So I'm visualizing Eleanor as being mature and well measured. She had an excellent heart, because we're still talking about Eleanor. Her disposition was affectionate and her feelings were strong, but she knew how to govern them. So she's in charge of her feelings. It was a knowledge which her mother had yet to learn and which her sisters had resolved never to be taught. Okay, so what's true about Eleanor? She's mature, responsible, and well-measured, maybe unlike the people in her family. Okay, A, Eleanor often argues with her mother. No. B, Eleanor can be overly sensitive. No. C, Eleanor thinks her mother's a bad role model. No. D, Eleanor is remarkably mature for her age. I believe that is the one. 7. Based on the text, which is true about Mrs. Ochiltree's acquaintances? The following text is adapted from Charles W. Chestnut's 1901 novel, The Marrow of Tradition. Okay, great name, Charles Chestnut. Mrs. Ochiltree was a woman of strong individuality whose comments upon her acquaintances, present or absent, were marked by a frankness at times. This is a perfect example. I read half this sentence and I got nothing. So I'm just going to take a breath and reread it. Mrs. Ochiltree was a woman of strong individuality. So I'm envisioning a woman wearing a pantsuit, and she's kind of older, and she's sitting at a dining room table, whose comments upon her acquaintances, present or absent, were marked by a frankness at times no less than startling. So she talks about her friends very openly, like maybe she likes to talk trash about her friends. This characteristic caused her to be more or less avoided. So yeah, I'm seeing her at a table where no one else is around. People don't seem to like this woman. Mrs. Ochiltree was aware of this sentiment on the part of her acquaintances and rather exulted in it. Okay, so what's true about her acquaintances? They avoid her. Maybe they think she's rude, but they avoid her for her frankness. Okay. A, they try to refrain from discussing the topics that would upset her. Nope, no evidence on that. B, they're unable to spend as much time with Mrs. Ochiltree as she would like. It doesn't mention her liking spending time with people. C, they're too preoccupied with their own concerns to speak with Mrs. Ochiltree. No. D, they're likely offended by what Mrs. Ochiltree has said about them. Yep, that matches up with what I just read. Breath. Let's go on to 8. What is the main idea of the text? Okay, I love these questions. I think they're the easiest ones, actually. All right, the following text is adapted from William Shakespeare's 1609 poem, Sonnet 27. I spoke too soon. The sonnets are usually hard. Poetry can be hard. Let's see. The poem is addressed to a close friend as if he were physically present. Okay, so I'm envisioning Shakespeare writing a letter to a friend of his. Weary with toil, I hurry to my bed. With poetry, it's really important to go line by line, to really go micro and visualize what's going on at each step of the way. So I'm envisioning Shakespeare in his little, like, weird, funny Victorian neck collar. Tired. He's groggy. And he runs to bed. The dear repose of limbs with travel tired. He's tired. His limbs are tired. He's like dragging himself to bed. But then begins a journey in my head. So he's in bed and things are running through his head to work in my mind. Okay, so his mind is working. When body's works expired, I guess when he's done, like his body's done working, for then my thoughts from far where I abide. So he's thinking about, far off land. Maybe he's thinking about China. Begin a zealous pilgrimage to thee. Oh, he's thinking about visiting his friend. And keep my drooping eyelids open wide. Oh, I like this poem. Shakespeare is, his eyes are open. He's kind of staring at the ceiling thinking about his friend. What's the main idea? Shakespeare misses his buddy and is thinking about him. A, the speaker is asleep and dreaming about traveling. No, he's not asleep. B, the speaker is planning an upcoming trip to the friend's house. No mention of that. C, the speaker is too fatigued to continue a discussion with a friend. They're not talking. I don't even think they're in the same place. D, the speaker is thinking about the friend instead of immediately falling asleep. Yes, that all came from my great first read. I had an experience. I enjoyed visualizing Shakespeare in his Victorian neck collar. If you're having trouble with poetry, I recommend you do the same. Slow it down, have an experience, and then the questions feel so easy. All right, 9. Which finding from Granito and Alvarez's research, if true, would most directly support their claim? These questions have like a stepping stone, I like to call it. You have to figure out what the claim is first. So as I'm reading, I'm going to try and figure that out. Here we go. Black beans, Phaseolus vulgaris, are a nutritionally dense food, but they're difficult to digest in part because of their high levels of soluble fiber and compounds like raffinose. Okay, I'm visualizing black beans with lots of kind of chemicals, nutrients in them, and they have lots of fiber, we'll say lots of F's in them, and lots of R's for raffinose. I'm visualizing that in a black bean. They also contain anti-nutrients like tannins and trypsin inhibitors. So I'm also visualizing T's and TIs that are like red because those are anti-nutrients. Okay, which interfere with the body's ability to extract nutrients from food. Those red letters make it so you can't digest. In a research article, Maricela Granito and Glenda Alvarez from Simón Bolívar University in Venezuela claimed that inducing fermentation of black beans using lactic acid bacteria improves the digestibility of the beans and makes them more nutritious. Okay, so what would support their claim? Well, I guess if they found out that the lactic acid bacteria decreases soluble fiber, the F and the R's, and the lactic acid bacteria also increases, dense food, maybe decreases, it's got to be decreases the anti-nutrients, so tannins and the TIs. So it decreases the F's, the R's, the T's, and the TIs. Let's see what says that. A, when cooked, fermented beans contain significantly more trypsin inhibitors and tannins. No, this doesn't actually mention the lactic acid bacteria, so I don't think A is right. B, fermented beans contain significantly less soluble fiber and raffinose than non-fermented beans. Oh, okay, I see. So we want less soluble fiber, less raffinose, and when cooked, the fermented beans also displayed a significant reduction in trypsin inhibitors and tannins. That is exactly what I predicted. I love it. C, when the fermented beans were analyzed, they were found to contain 2 microorganisms. Nope, that doesn't mention my prediction. And D, both fermented and non-fermented black beans contain significantly fewer trypsin inhibitors and tannins after being cooked at high pressure. Now, this is all about the fermented being different from the non-fermented. So B's the answer. That would have been tricky if I didn't have a great first read. So I really took my time. I took these fancy sciencey words and just visualized them as letters, and I think that helped me get this right. All right, let's keep it moving. Question 10, which effectively uses the data from the table to complete the example. Okay, good. This is kind of a hack. I always read the titles. The titles tell you what you're looking at. So ablation rates for 3 elements in the cosmic dust by dust source. I gotta be perfectly honest, I have no idea what ablation means. They'll probably tell me, but something that is being measured for 3 elements in cosmic dust. So I'm thinking about like star dust. There's iron, potassium, sodium. I'm gonna do what's called the 1-sentence story. What's the 1-sentence story of this table? Well, iron goes up based on the different sources of dust. Potassium goes up, and sodium also goes up. So all of these go up from left to right. Okay, Earth's atmosphere is bombarded by cosmic dust originating from several sources. Short period comets, I guess that's the SPCs, I'm envisioning comets. Particles from the asteroid belt, I'm envisioning an asteroid. Halley-type comets, I'm envisioning maybe a bigger comet. And Oort cloud comets, I'm visualizing the biggest possible comet. Some of the dust's material vaporizes in the atmosphere in a process called ablation. There it is. So ablation is dust material, so material vaporizing in the atmosphere. I'm envisioning like a pop and dust is everywhere. The higher the rate, I lost it. Okay, and the faster the particles move, the higher the rate of ablation. So I guess these are moving the fastest. Astrophysicist Juan Diego Correa Sanchez led a team that calculated average ablation rates for the elements in the dust, such as iron and potassium, and showed that the material in slower moving SPC or AST dust has a lower rate than the same material faster moving HTC or OCC dust. For example, whereas the average ablation rate for iron from AST is 28%, you'd want to compare the average ablation rate for iron for something higher. So I would say my prediction is 90% iron, 90% HTC, or 98% OCC. So iron from SPC is 20. Nope, that goes the wrong way. Sodium, no. Iron from HTC is 90. Yes, that's what I predicted. Sodium from AST, not what I predicted. So again, I'm really investing in the first read. I'm sticking with the words, even if I don't know them, and that allows me to make a good prediction. So I feel good about that. All right, 11. Which choice most effectively uses data from the graph to illustrate the claim? Okay, same as before. Again, I'm looking at the title, Economic Policy Uncertainty in the United Kingdom, 2005 to 2010. So policy uncertainty in the UK. Good. What's the one sentence story for 05, like all of this whole, data representation? Well, I guess tax spending. I'm going to take a moment to take it all in. Okay, so I guess tax spending and public policy goes down, goes up and down. Trade policy pretty much goes down, and general economic policy goes down for a bit and then back up. So 3 different looks based on what policy we're looking at. Breath. Okay, high levels of public uncertainty about which economic policies a country will adopt can make planning difficult for businesses. But measures of such uncertainty have not tended to be very detailed. Recently, however, economist Sandil Hlashwayo analyzed trends in news reports to derive measures not only for general economic policy uncertainty, but also for uncertainty related to specific areas of economic policy, like tax or trade policy. One revelation of her work is that a general measure may not fully reflect the uncertainty about specific areas of policy, as in the case of the UK, where the general economic policy uncertainty, the general policy kind of went up from 2008 to 2010 while another one went down. I guess we're looking for some sort of contrast. Like general economic policy uncertainty goes up while others go down. Okay. A, aligned closely with the uncertainty about tax and public spending policy in 2005, but differed from uncertainty about tax. Nope, they were the same in 2009. So this just isn't true. I'm going to take it off. B, was substantially lower than uncertainty about tax and public spending policy each year from 2005 to 2010. Let me reread that. Was lower than uncertainty each year. No, you want something that differs. So if it's the same, that's not what we're looking for. C, reached its highest level between 2005 and 2010 in the same year that uncertainty about trade policy and tax and public spending policy reached their lowest level. So I like the contrast there. Where's its highest level? General policy, highest level is 2010. In the same year that uncertainty about trade policy and tax and public spending policy reached their lowest levels. No, that's not the lowest level, so I don't think C is right. D, was substantially lower than uncertainty about trade policy in 2005 and substantially higher than uncertainty about trade policy in 2010. I like the contrast there. Let's see if it's true. Lower than trade policy in 2005. Yes. In 2010, higher than trade policy in 2010. Boom. That is definitely the right answer. Whew. Okay. I might do, I'm just noticing like it's a lot of science in a row. And when I do these, I usually hit a wall around now where I'm going to want to jump forward and do some of the shorter, quicker problems. I'm going to do one more of these and then go do that. So deep breath. Which choice best describes the data from the table that support the researcher's hypothesis? Okay. Again, I'm going to notice the stepping stone. I need the researcher's hypothesis. All right. Average number and duration of torpor bouts and arousal episodes for Alaska marmots and Arctic ground squirrels, 2008 to 2011. Okay, so we're looking at two animals. It's like a marmot and a squirrel, and we're looking at torpor bouts and arousal episodes. I don't necessarily know what those are, but I'm sure they'll tell me. One sentence story. It seems like marmots have more torpor bouts for shorter periods. They have more arousal episodes for longer periods. Okay. When hibernating, Alaska marmots and Arctic ground squirrels enter a state called torpor, which minimizes the energy their bodies will need to function. There it is. So I'm envisioning these little squirrels. One is like a black squirrel. We'll say a marmot looks like that. And one is like a white squirrel. And I'm envisioning them kind of hibernating. Often a hibernating animal will temporarily come out of torpor, called an arousal episode. So that is, I'm visualizing the squirrels waking up. And its metabolic rate will rise, burning more of the precious energy the animal needs to survive the winter. Alaska marmots hibernate in groups and therefore burn less energy keeping warm during these episodes than if they were alone. Okay, so I'm visualizing the black squirrel hibernating in a circle of other black squirrels, and they burn less energy keeping warm than if they were alone. A researcher hypothesized that because Arctic ground squirrels hibernate alone, so envisioning the white ones hibernating alone, they would likely exhibit longer bouts of torpor and shorter arousal episodes. So the white squirrels sleep longer and wake up for shorter amounts of time. Okay, which data describes the hypothesis? I'm going to highlight the hypothesis here. Okay, Arctic ground squirrels hibernate alone. Yeah, I'm envisioning that the torpor bouts are higher. Yeah, kind of what that one sentence story was. The torpor bouts were for the marmots. Torpor bouts are, there's more and shorter, and the arousal is more and longer. Okay. Hey, the marmots' arousal episodes lasted for days, while the Arctic ground squirrels' arousal episodes lasted less than a day. Is that true? The arousal episodes lasted for days. That's not even true, so I'm going to cross it off. B, the Alaska marmots and the Arctic ground squirrels both maintained torpor for several consecutive days. This doesn't point out a difference, so it can't be B. C, the Alaska marmots had shorter torpor bouts. That's right. And longer arousal episodes than the Arctic ground squirrel did. Yeah, that's right. That feels pretty good. D, the Alaska marmots had more torpor bouts than arousal episodes, but their arousal episodes were much shorter than their torpor bouts. So this doesn't compare the two animals, so that doesn't work with the hypothesis. The hypothesis mentions the two different animals, so it has to be C. Okay, and rather than taking on another data question, I'm going to move forward a little bit just because my brain's a little fried. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of reading. So I'm going to keep going until I get to one of the grammar questions. So I only have to skip a couple, but here I am at number 15. I'm taking a breath. I'm resetting. Okay. Which choice best completes the text so it conforms to the definition of standard English? It looks like this is a sentence structure and punctuation question. So let's see if that helps. Both Sona Charioptra, an Indian American, and Danielle Clayton, an African American, grew up frustrated by the lack of diverse characters in books for young people. In 2011, these two writers joined forces to found Cake Literary, a book packaging company. So I use the golden rule of commas, meaning if you don't need a comma, don't use it. And nothing here, this isn't a list. There's no dependent clause or anything like that. So no comma needed. Taking off the ones with commas. Do I need the word that? A book packaging company that specializes in the creation and promotion of stories told from, yeah, you need the word that to connect company. It specializes, it's going to be B. Breath. This looks like it might be a pronoun question. It, they, this, some. Let's see if that helps. In 1930, Japanese-American artist Chiura Obata depicted the natural beauty of Yosemite National Park in two memorable woodcuts. Evening at Carl Inn and Lake Basin in the High Sierra. In 2019, Blank exhibited along, I think this is referring back to two memorable woodcuts. I don't even know, I'm not even sure what a woodcut is, but it sounds like there's two of them. So they were exhibited alongside 150 of his other works. Yeah, they refers back to evening, those two things. It's plural. This is singular. Singular. Some doesn't refer back to the two, so it's B. Okay, this is sentence structure and punctuation again. It has to do with periods, commas, probably dependent and independent clauses. Let's check it out. American writer Edwidge Danticat, who emigrated from Haiti in 1981, has won acclaim for her powerful short stories, novels, and essays. I think that seems like an independent clause. Let's see if it works with a period. Praising her lyrical yet unflinching depictions of her native country's turbulent history, writer Robert Antoni has compared Danticat to Nobel Prize-winning novelist Toni Morrison. Yeah, those are two independent clauses. You need a period to separate them. If you use a comma, it's a comma splice. You can't just use and. You need punctuation. It's D. Breath. This looks like another sentence structure question. In 1966, Emmett Ashford became the first African-American to umpire a Major League Baseball game. His energetic gestures, announcing when a player had struck out, and his habit of barreling after a hit ball to see if it would land out of bounds helped transform the traditionally solemn umpire into a dynamic one. So this is golden rule of commas. There's no need for a comma here. It's still part of the same idea. When a player had struck out, and his habit of barreling after a hit ball to see if it would land out of bounds helped transform. That thing helped transform. I'm pretty sure it's A. The word that is unnecessary. It makes this whole part into a dependent clause, so it can't be C. Bounds to help, same thing. So it's just A. It's the only one that makes it a complete sentence with a subject, verb, complete thought. 19. This looks like sentence structure and punctuation again. Dash versus comma versus nothing versus semicolon. I'll remind you, I always start these by trying it with no comma. Let's see if that works. In crafting her fantasy fiction, Nigerian-born British author Helen Oyeyemi has drawn inspiration from the classic 19th century fairy tales of the Brothers Grimm. Her 2014 novel Boy, Snow, Bird, for instance, is a complex retelling of the story of Snow White, while her 2019 novel Gingerbread offers a delicious twist on the classic tale of Hansel and Gretel. Okay, there's no comma needed. There's no parenthetical. There's no list. Golden rule of commas, if you don't need commas, don't use them. So, C. Okay, 20. This looks like a pronouns question. The violins, handmade in the 17th century by Italian craftsman Antonio Stradivari, have been celebrated as some of the finest in the world. In close collaboration with musicians, Stradivari introduced changes to the shape of a traditional violin, flattening some of the instrument's curves and making it, the instrument is what we're referring back to, so it's got to be singular. Making it lighter overall, those is plural. One, I don't think so. Them is plural, doesn't work. Making it, you refer back to the instrument, making it lighter overall, the traditional violin. Okay, good. Breath. Another punctuation question. Let's see what's going on with the commas versus the semicolons. During the English neoclassical period, many writers imitated the epic poetry and satires of ancient Greece and Rome. They were not the first in England to adopt the literary modes of classical antiquity, however. I think that's an independent clause, and the however goes with the first part. So they were not the first in England to adopt the literary modes of classical antiquity, however. Independent clause. Some of the most prominent figures of the earlier Renaissance period were also influenced by the ancient Greek and Roman literature. So that's also an independent clause. So I've got an independent clause that ends in however. There should be a semicolon there, and then another independent clause. So the only one that does that is C. A doesn't have a semicolon to separate the independent clauses. Same with B. D does have a semicolon. It just puts it in the wrong place. The however is part of the first idea. All right, transition questions. I love these. Predicting is so important on these. So I'm going to get my paper out, make sure it's ready to go. All right. One poll taken after the first 1960 presidential debate suggested that John Kennedy lost badly. Only 21% of those who listened on the radio rated him the winner. Blank, the debate was ultimately considered a victory for the telegenic young senator who rated higher than his opponent, Vice President Richard Nixon, among those watching on the new medium of television. This is a contrast. So my prediction is however. Okay, in other words, no. Therefore, no. Likewise, no, nevertheless, it's the only contrast word that's got to be right. This was made really easy by the fact that I invested in the first read and made a prediction. Which choice completes the text with the most logical transition? Same type of question. I'm going to predict. In November 1934, Amrita Sher Gill was living in what must have seemed like the ideal city for the young artist, Paris. She was studying firsthand the color-saturated style of France's modernist masters and beginning to make a name for herself as a painter. Blank, Sher Gill longed to return to her childhood home of India. Only there, she believed, could her art truly flourish. So, it could be a contrast. I could predict, however, or something like eventually, like after a while, are my predictions. Okay, still, that's a contrast word. That could be right. Therefore, no, that's a cause and effect. That's not the transition we need. Indeed is a continuer. That's not the transition we need. And furthermore, is also cause and effect. You don't want a continuer word or a cause and effect word there. You need something with transition. Still's actually the only one where you see transition. Let me just think on that for a second. Yeah, that feels good. She wanted to stay in France. However, still, she longed to return to India. I like it. Breath. Okay. Same type of question. In his 1925 book, The Morphology of Landscape, U.S. geographer Carl Sauer challenged prevailing views about how natural landscapes influence human cultures. Okay, so I'm envisioning this geographer challenging views. He's like angry about something in this book. Blank, Sauer argued that instead of being shaped entirely by their natural surroundings, cultures play an active role in their own development by virtue of their interactions with the environment. I think my prediction is specifically, because it's a general claim, and then it says, like, specifically, here's how he argued it. Okay, similarly, I don't think so. I think it's getting more specific. Finally, no. Therefore, it's not a conclusion, and then specifically, there's my prediction. So yeah, this comes from the first read, that general claim and specific second sentence. I like my prediction there. It helped. Okay, I imagine maybe the last one of this type. Same thing. Although those who migrated to California in 1849 dreamed of finding gold nuggets in stream beds, the state's richest deposits were buried deeply in rock, beyond the reach of individual prospectors. Blank, by 1852, many had given up their fortune hunting dreams and gone to work for one of the large companies capable of managing California's complex mining operations. So I would say, as a result, is my prediction. They couldn't get to the gold, so they went and worked for the miners. Okay, furthermore, no. Still, no. Consequently, pretty much same thing as a result. So as a consequence, that feels really good. Next, no. Consequently feels really good. Okay, and these last two, I imagine, are going to be these what I call note-taking questions. You get some notes, and you have to answer a question kind of synthesizing a notes. I always start these by reading this question. These accomplish a goal questions. So the student wants to present the Quanhuken study and its conclusions. Which choice uses the relevant information from the notes to accomplish this goal? So the study and its conclusions. While researching a topic, the student has taken the following notes. In 2013, archaeologists studied cat bone fragments they had found in the ruins of Quanhuken, a Chinese farming village. The fragments were estimated to be 5,300 years old. A chemical analysis of the fragments revealed that the cats had consumed large amounts of grain. The grain consumption is evidence that the Quanhuken cats may have been domesticated. Okay, so the goal here is to present the study and its conclusion. So my prediction is date cat bones, find grain, conclude that they're domesticated. Okay, let's see which of these covers that. As part of a 2013 study of cat domestication, a chemical analysis was conducted on cat bone fragments. No, that doesn't talk about the idea that they were domesticated, the conclusion of the study, so it can't be A. 2013 analysis of cat bone fragments found in Quanhuken, China suggests that there may have been domesticated. Suggests that cats there may have been domesticated 5,300 years ago. That might be right. See, in 2013, archaeologists studied what cats had eaten more than 5,000 years ago. It doesn't talk about the domestication. D, cat bone fragments estimated to be 5,300 years old were found, but it doesn't talk about domestication. So B is the only one that has everything I predicted. Okay, last question before I go back to the ones I skipped. The student wants to emphasize the difference in the origins of the two words. I would definitely use the highlighting tool here, as I've been doing, to highlight what they want. What goal do they want you to accomplish? Well, so they want me to emphasize a difference in the origins of the two words. While researching a topic, a student has taken the following notes. Starting in 1925, the Scripps National Spelling Bee is a US-based spelling competition. The words used in the competition of diverse linguistic origins. In 2008, Samir Mishra won by correctly spelling the word guerdon. Guerdon derives from the Anglo-French word guerdon. In 2009, Kavya Shivashankar won by spelling the word Laodicean. Laodicean derives from the ancient Greek word Laodikeia. Okay, so we want to emphasize a difference in the origins of the two words. So guerdon is from Anglo-French. Laodicean is Greek. G is from French. And then Laodicean is from Greek. That's my prediction. A, guerdon, the final word of the 2008, is from Anglo-French, while the following year's word derives from ancient Greek. That looks really good. I think that's probably it. Let's go to the others. In 2008, this doesn't talk about the origins, so that can't be right. C, okay, this doesn't compare the two words, so that can't be right. D, this doesn't talk about the origins either, so it was, in fact, A. Okay, I feel really good about where we're at. Let's go back to the two questions and kind of, I just kind of have a found energy to deal with these complex graphs and figures again, and I feel like I'm going to put myself in a better position to get these right. Okay, so data. I'm going to read here employment by sector in France and the United States. I'm going to look through the data and come up with a one-sentence story. Okay, looks like agriculture in France and the US starts the same. In 1900, it's the same. In 1950, it's very different. And by 2012, it's back to the same. That's my one-sentence story. Okay. Over the past 200 years, the percentage of the population employed in the agricultural sector has declined in both France and the United States, while employment in the service sector, which includes jobs in retail, consulting, real estate, has risen. However, this transition happened at very different rates in the two countries. This can be seen most clearly by comparing the employment by sector in both countries. My prediction is 1800 or 1900 to 1950. It's got to be one of those early years to 1950. Okay, 1900 with the employment sector in 1950. That's exactly what I predicted. I think it's probably right. 1800 to 2012, no. 1900 to 2012, no. 1800 to 1900, no. That's where the difference is, 1900 to 1950. And last question. Logically completes the test. Okay, Euphorbia isula leafy spurge is a Eurasian plant that has become invasive in North America, where it displaces native vegetation and sickens cattle. Okay, so I'm envisioning this little um, small plant that kills bigger plants and makes cows sick. E. isula can be controlled with chemical herbicides, but that approach can also kill harmless plants nearby. So I'm envisioning like a spray herbicide that's killing the little leaf and also killing the bigger plants I was visualizing. Recent research on introducing engineered DNA into plant species to inhibit their reproduction may offer a path toward exclusively targeting E. isula. Consequently, um, consequently increasing the growth of native vegetation and making healthier cattle. That's my prediction. A, making individual Eosula plants more susceptible to existing chemical herbicides. I don't think so. B, enhancing the ecological benefits of Eosula in North America. C, I don't think so. C, enabling cattle to consume Eosula without becoming sick. I don't think so. D, reducing invasive Eosula numbers without harming other organisms. I think this is right. It wasn't exactly what I predicted, but the idea of engineering DNA to just exclusively target the E. usula, that feels right. Reducing numbers without harming other organisms, yeah, that feels good. Okay, excellent. So I've answered everything. I haven't marked anything for review. I feel really good about this. I was breathing. I skipped and came back. I'm going to submit this module and move on with my test.